At Fever Tree, we think whether it's a gin and tonic, a delicious mule, or a sparkling Paloma, if 3/4 of your drink is the mixer, shouldn't it be made with the finest ingredients, mixed with the best? Fever Tree.
What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. I've got a nice new microphone set up. There's no more like big black arm coming over and like putting a microphone in my face. So it's nice and clean now. This is really keeping my chi very open and nice right now. I'm really looking forward to today's chat. Of course, I always say that because I'm always excited when I get to interview people. Lindsey hasn't actually been on the show. Lindsey Johnson from Lush Life Productions. They do Portland Cocktail Week, come at Camp Runamok, amongst other things. And it wasn't until I did Portland Cocktail Week a couple of weeks ago that I was just like, I need to have you on the show. I can't believe I haven't had you on the show in the last 5 or 6 years. How long I've been doing this? Almost 6 years. Almost 7 years, actually. Is that right? Man, almost 7 years. Okay, so almost 7 years. So this is live stream number 204. So 204 live streams over the last 6 years. And we were chatting in the green room, and it always happens when I get online with friends that all of a sudden we start chatting about everything that's going on everywhere else and what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm like, oh, damn, I got to really record this for posterity. And I've done it so many times, and I always try and recoup the questions that we're answering. So Lindsey's got a very busy schedule. So good morning, Lindsey. Nice to have you.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's so good to see you again. And so quickly after the last time I saw you. I love this.
I know it's always like for most people in the industry, it's always like, okay, well, it's going to be XYZ time till the next time I see you. And it's always something crazy. Like Portland Cocktail Week, you are so crazy for Portland Cocktail Week that you don't even get an opportunity to like stop and chill. And you are very fastidious when it comes to Portland Cocktail Week. You try and hit every event to make sure every event is running the way you want it to be run. And after so many years, you're still so hands-on when it comes to Portland Cocktail Week.
Oh, it's because I love it, right? It's a labor of love. We put Portland Cocktail Week on. This was our 16th year, which is wild to say. We're doing it for 16 years, and it's lived so many different lives already, right? Like we've had programs that when we started, it was like a very traditional cocktail festival, and the main reason we started it was because a lot of our friends couldn't afford to get themselves to Tails or one of the other bigger events and then afford the tickets to go to the classes. So we're like, okay, so let's develop something where all the classes are free. So it's always been completely free to attend the classes at Portland Cocktail Week, which is like super duper important to us. Same with camp. Like we don't want to put a price tag on that. And then, we rely on our brand partners to come in and kind of foot the bill, and we get creative with how we pay for the stuff that doesn't get covered. But it's so important that if you're going to do something like this, if 2,000 people are trusting you with the 1 week they have off from work, the least I can do is show up and make sure the buses are running and make sure there are drinks and food and make sure that everything is running the way it's supposed to. So I appreciate you saying those very kind things, but I think it's the very least I can do when 2,000 people are giving me a week of their life.
How has it evolved? You mentioned in like the earlier on, I think the last time I spoke before this year was like 2019, I believe. And it was at the World Trade Center downtown with like the classrooms above and then like a little tasting salon downstairs. How has it evolved over the 16 years to where it is now? Because I feel like the years that I have gone, which have been, I think, 6 or 7 out of the 16, it's always well attended. The classrooms are always full. And I've done classes at other shows that you're like, okay, it's first thing in the morning at 9 o'clock, you're the first class, and it's empty or half empty. How do you keep that sort of spark going? And the people that I met were from all over the US and Canada, like coming to Portland. It's not just the Pacific Northwest; it's the whole of North America.
I mean, I think it comes down to a few things, right? So let me answer your first question first. So when we started Portland Cocktail Week, like I said, we were really just very focused on making sure that classes were free, and that was a big step. The next big step we took was we took alcohol out of the classroom. And that was, oh my goodness, you would have thought that I had gone and set all of these big portfolios on fire when I told them that we weren't going to allow alcohol in the classroom unless there's a tasting element or some sort of R&D element. Like if you need alcohol in the classroom, of course, that's totally fine. But if we're learning about spreadsheets, Do we need to have 3 gin and tonics in an hour? I don't think so. So like that was another huge change that we made. We were the first ones to do that, I want to say in like 2014. Like it's been a while. And we've kept with that the whole time. Um, and the next big changes came when I started really thinking about equity and how we really build systems that serve our community. I love a class about theory. I love a class about entire categories of spirits, right? We do a whole lot of those here at Lush Life. But the thing that I thought was missing the most was really focusing on specific career tracks and giving people the skills and the mentors within those career tracks to really take the next step in their career, right? Because I think once we get labor equity, we get to a place where everybody has access to the same tools and can make the same money, we can achieve equity across gender, across race, in a lot of other ways, right? When we open that door, we give everyone access to the same resources, we can do a lot. So in 2017, 2018, we moved into that format where you would pick your major before, and the majors would be bar ownership, bar management, various different things, right? You could tell us what you wanted to do, and we would give you a slate of classes that addressed exactly that career path. And we had great feedback on it, right? Like the people who attended the classes were so happy with the structure there. Then the pandemic happened and there were some financial realities. And we couldn't really afford to keep doing it that way anymore. And we were also getting a little bit of feedback in that last year, 2018, 2019, where folks were saying, we really like it, but I don't know if I want to be a bar owner or if I want to just stay behind the bar. I don't know if I want to be a consultant. I'd love to be able to take 2 classes about this and 2 classes about that. So we opened it up a little bit. And that's the format that we have now, where we have some classes on site, some classes off site. The off-site classes are like all day, 3-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour classes. Some of them are like field trips to distilleries and wineries. Some of them are super hands-on education. Sometimes we bake bread, right? Like there's all different stuff that can happen in those classes. And the ones that are on site are a little bit more of those career driven. We have a class that has been super popular the last couple of years that's just about email etiquette. Thank you, Jared Sadoyan. Like there are some classes, everything really has that like kernel of how do I apply this in my career? How do I take a skill today and bring it home tomorrow and make my job a little bit easier, make myself a little bit more money, help the people on my team a little bit more. So when we're developing the content, it's really always been rooted in how can I do the job that I want to do in the future? How can I do my job today a little better, and how can I do that job in the future a little bit better too, and be ready for that next step? So that's the thought process. So that aspect hasn't changed very much. The nighttime events, the structure of that hasn't changed at all. The only thing that's really changed is how we label the classes, and now there's a little bit more freedom to kind of take the class you want to go to at the time slot you want to go to.
I was blown away with the response I got from I think I got the best response from any session I've ever done at any show anywhere was from PDX Cocktail Week. It was kind of overwhelming. I think 165 people or 365 people in 3 days hit my website to download everything that I had in the class, which is incredible. One thing I did mention to a lot of friends was the 2 things: the transport between events and things, which you don't see very regularly, and then proper food at every event, which I think every bar show, and as a celiac, even covering that stuff, because usually when I travel, it's either I don't eat at all, which is bad, especially when you're doing events at night, or I do chance eating and then I get poisoned and I'm in a celiac hole for 3 days, which happens all the time. What were the thought processes behind that? Because I thought it was genius that you kept people at events, you fed them, people aren't disappearing. And I'm going to use Tails as an example just because it's Tails' Tails.
It's the best, yeah.
At 6 o'clock at night, if you're at an event, you're like, oh, I really got to get dinner. You disappear for 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
And then you come back tail end of a late night event or start of a late night event. But you kept people at these events really, really well. Gave a lot of opportunities for the people who were at my sessions at least to come to me and actually have chats outside of the space. What's the thought process between like this transport and this big food focus at all these events post classroom?
Well, so the logical conclusion, right? If I'm entrusting somebody with a week of their life, right? They're giving us a week of their life. And I know that financial constraints are the biggest reason that folks go to these events and don't get very much out of it, right? They have enough to like get a hotel room to share with a friend for a few days, or they have enough for the plane ticket, but they don't have enough to also eat the whole week. They don't have enough to Uber from point A to point B all week. It was really important for us to solve that problem, right? Making sure, I mean, from a like business perspective, the events are full from the minute we start to the minute we end, right? Like if you partner with Portland Cocktail Week, you're getting a full house, friend, and you better be ready and there better be enough food. That's part of why I show up early to all those events, to make sure there's enough food. But the transportation, I think, is important on that level, right? So it's really helpful to our partners. But the flip side of that is it's really very important to our guests to know that they're not going to have to spend $300 on Uber over the course of a week. That really adds up. Like Ubers add up really fast, or radio cab, whatever you know, in Portland, we love our radio cabs. But that's super duper important to keep in mind, right? So if I'm saying I already know that they're not working for the week, and it's not like most of these folks are salaried, so they're not taking in any money for the whole week. So how do we solve that problem? So step one, transportation. It also means that we don't have any issues with driving and alcohol. We are completely compliant. The legal departments, the compliance departments at almost all the portfolios just they love me like I love them, which is to say we care about keeping people safe. So we're besties. I love them. You know, they're the people who are usually on my side where I'm like, yes, it costs more because the buses cost more and we have to do it. And you know, the reason you don't see it at other events is twofold, right? One is the buses cost more money than the hotel we rent out for the week, right? Buses are the most expensive thing at Camp Runamok. They're the most expensive thing at Portland Cocktail Week. They are our biggest line item by a mile, right? They're a huge expense. But people don't get hurt. People are safe, and their safety is more important to me than my finances. So I'm happy to pay that bill. Um, so the other side of it is we've designed our events with the shuttles in mind. So instead of having, you know, 7 different big events happening at once, for the most part, there's either one big event or 2 or 3 small events that have been very strategically located to be super close to each other, so that we're able to keep folks kind of on the same train together. So we have one, the benefit to our partners in making sure the room is full, making sure they're getting the value out of their investment with us. 2, safety, which is the most important thing. All of our pals are safe. 3, they're not spending money, which is super, super, super important. And 4, maybe the most important part of the whole thing is the social aspect. You're on a bus with people who you maybe didn't get to talk to, right? You get on that bus and maybe there's only one seat open and it's next to somebody you've never met before. It forces social interaction that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise, right? If you're in that Uber, you'll get great social interaction with the Uber driver, who I'm sure is great, but they're not there for the same reason you are. So that social interaction is also super duper important. So that's my deal on the buses, right? Like I think they're incredibly important. As far as the food goes, part of the reason the event is in Portland is because in the state of Oregon, it is illegal to serve alcohol without food. And I had the hardest time, Shawn, getting brand partners to have sufficient food at events. So we had to kind of default and go with the only state that forces it, right? So in Oregon, you're required to have 3 substantial items of food available. Also, one of them has to be vegetarian, vegan. Um, you know, the state of Oregon really dictates that we have to have all of that stuff. I'm not going to pretend like that wasn't on purpose. Like we picked, or I had been to Oregon one time before we put Portland Cocktail Week together, and that was a huge selling point to me. Obviously, the city's incredible. The people are incredible. You're not going to get better food, drinks, view. Like it ticks all the boxes, right? Like Portland's an incredible city. But the OLCC was the big selling point for me. They come to every single event. They double check that there's enough food. They double check that there are water stations every 6 feet. They check that there are alcohol monitors, all the things that we need to have to keep a safe and compliant event in Oregon means a safe and compliant event for everybody. And that's why we don't have people who are too drunk to show up for class at 8 a.m., you know, to show up for breakfast at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, we have people in for career counseling at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning because they had a pretty reasonable night. Like, I'm not going to say people didn't have a bad time, right? Like that people are partying. Like, I don't want to pretend like people aren't going to these events and having a great time. Like there's no doubt that that's happening. When you do that and you also have like a glass of water in between and like a hot dog, you're probably going to feel a lot better the next morning than if you hadn't eaten all day, and you had to worry about moving your car. So those things really are a huge part of why I think the event is so successful. And while they do cost way more money, I think every dollar that's spent on food and safety is a dollar well spent.
Yeah, I even had some of your team when I was walking through the Hotel Jupiter going, hey, did you have lunch? Did you see, like, there's lunch in the tent? Like, did you eat? Like, it was very different style. So we were talking in the green room about education and how education's evolved. And I was mentioning, lamenting, I suppose, on how the certification courses have been very popular for you. Some that you've organized. I did the EBC. I can't even say it. ABCs of Canadian whiskey earlier this year, which is a fantastic in-depth course. And we were sort of talking about, like, you can bring these staff to these very in-depth courses. You did the American Single Malt one this year at the PDX Cocktail Week. And you have, of course, you have Brittany going, hey, have you finished that quiz? Hey, did you finish that chapter? And having that support network, because I found already that it's interesting that how I have done training in my venues is not necessarily atypical to every venue, even though I did a seminar at Portland Cocktail Week this year about how much training does not cost in the grand scheme of things. But how is that sort of that level of certification courses been a big part of the ecosystem for Lush Life?
So for us, it's such a great way to really efficiently get resume boosters to the folks that are part of our network, right? Like you mentioned, most places can't or don't offer training programs beyond, here's how we make our drinks, here's how we do our systems, which is totally understandable, right? These are small businesses. A lot of folks just don't have the bandwidth to do more. And that's where we kind of come in as a stopgap, right? So we put out these programs as often as we possibly can. We have a couple of Jameson ones running right now around Irish whiskey. We have one where I think our friends are going to learn very soon if they got into the American whiskey program. We're doing Bullet. We're out there trying to do as many of these programs as we possibly can, because they ultimately are, one, they're great resume boosters, right? If you are going out there and you're up for a job at the Multnomah Whiskey Library in Portland and you have your executive bourbon steward, it's a lot easier to get that job than if you don't, right? So, the flip side of that is that program also costs like $500-$600, worth every penny, right? Like, it's super in depth. They send you the coolest stuff. They're brilliant. Like, these guys are brilliant. It's worth every penny. But a lot of folks just don't have that money, and if they do, they maybe aren't going to make the commitment themselves to follow through and get it done, right? And it's really hard to not get it done if you have our sweet, wonderful, the nicest person on earth, Brittany Leach, calling you once a week saying, where is it? Where's your quiz? I know you did it. Where's your quiz? The same person who's also bullying you into eating, by the way. Almost certainly that's who was telling somebody to eat.
It was definitely
I'm shocked. Everybody's wonderful Southern mom. But it helps a lot when you have 49 other people who you can rely on and be like, hey, did you get notes for this? We make sure that they're all in a Discord together and that they have access to each other, and they can talk to the educators, and there's just a lot more support, along with obviously my team is supporting the whole way, but also that peer support is really, really, really important, and making sure that they have this community. And like, if you're in one of these classes, like, you're a nerd. And I say that is the least derogatory thing I can possibly say. You're my people, right? But all the other people in that class are too. And they're so passionate about the same thing you are. So it's a nice little group of friends, and if you are going to go visit Chicago, you have probably 5 new friends in that group that you can go see, or you want to move to New York. You have a couple of people you can talk to about what that's like and see if you really want to do it. These communities are obviously designed to help facilitate the learning process, but they ultimately create these larger networks that become incredibly valuable for folks. And that's where my passion is. I love a spirit. I love teaching and learning about spirits, but my passion is in seeing these communities get built and serving our people. That's what I get really excited about.
Yeah, I always joke and say that because I do so much trade, like every at Clive's, everybody had EWA training in gin, Irish whiskey, Scotch. WSET 1 after the first year, Bar Smarts like online start with, and then second year was like WSET 2, third year was like agave training and stuff like that, and like the Stave and Thief courses are great. And people go, Bob, why would you do this? I'm like, I want to make my team so overeducated that it is near on impossible to get them to get a job somewhere else, because they'll be too expensive for that person to buy them. They're going to be minimum wage, they're going to be a couple of bucks more. So you're a uber busy entrepreneur in this space inside the Lush Life ecosystem. Of course, we've just been talking about PDX Cocktail Week. What else is sitting in your ecosystem that you deal with on a daily or weekly basis?
Well, of course, we have Camp Runamok, which is pervasive. It is around every corner in my life currently. I ended up buying the camp last summer. Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms, Shawn. We'll get into that some other time. But it's not going to be an Amazon fulfillment center, so that's something. I did something. So camp is one of my favorite things that we get to do. We bring about 500 folks, bartenders, down to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail every year, and they get to experience these distilleries firsthand, and they get to spend a little bit of time with the master distillers. And we're so fortunate to work with partners who go so above and beyond. The experiences that you get at these distilleries are so much further than even if you're a VIP industry person coming down to visit on your own, right? Like these experiences are like nothing anyone's ever seen, right? They're so in depth. They're multiple hours. Most of them are 3, 4, some of them are even 6 hours long. And you are getting to do everything while you're there. So the education side of it is really, really fantastic. But of course, when we talk about our programs, we have a couple of little pillars. And at Portland Cocktail Week, the number one pillar is education, right? Like there's no doubt that is our top priority, is education, with community and care being right behind it. Camp, it sort of flips. We start with community and community building as our number one priority. And camp is this really magical place where I get to use all of my old, punk and sorority background. I get to take all of my accelerated friendship skills that I've learned throughout the years and put them into a program where we're able to give people the opportunity to really get to know other individuals in the industry. Again, people who are like them, right? They're in similar stages in their career. They're folks who are typically like leaders in their communities, who are excited about education, excited about bringing that back to their communities, but also people who want to make some friends and want to meet new people. And camp is a place where the only rules are around safety. We really encourage people to be themselves the whole time and the whole way. And it's truly remarkable what we get to do in that ecosystem. It's like, I don't know, it's magical. And it's one of those things where it sounds made up when I talk about it, but it is the best thing I get to do. I love it so much. And then beyond that, we also, for the record, Portland Cocktail Week and Camp Runamok don't make money, right? Like those events don't make money. So we have to make money to pay my staff and to make sure that we can keep doing these projects. And when Portland Cocktail Week is a few dollars, we'll say a few dollars to be positive short, we have money that we can pull from other places. So a lot of that comes in from our client work. And we work with a number of spirits brands across the board, cross portfolios, everything from, canned RTDs to some of the highest end tequilas, whiskeys, whatever, right? We work with kind of everybody and in different capacities. Sometimes we're just consulting. Sometimes we're developing programs. Sometimes we're doing the certification programs. I go to Ireland in a couple of days and we're planning a trip. We're bringing a bunch of folks over to Ireland who scored very well in their certification program as a little reward, little treat. So, like every day is kind of different on that front, and the services that we put out into the world are different, kind of across the board here as well. But we do all kinds of fun work in that space, and that's really what pays the bills.
So when it comes to, like you just mentioned, the ecosystem of course, anyone who thinks that Portland Cocktail Week and the outside looking in is like, oh, they must be just raking in the money, just raking it in. One of the guys here in Victoria actually did Camp Runamok a couple of years ago, big lanky Ryan, and I saw pictures from his experience at Camp Runamok, and I'm like, if I was a decade younger, I might be up for that, but I just feel like the 45-year-old me is just like, yeah, I'm not going to do
Fine.
that.
I'm 43 and I've been to every session. The two people who have been to every session are me and Bernie Lubbers, and we're right there with you, friend. We're the same age bracket.
He was as a party animal, though. He's an absolute beast of a party animal.
Oh, and the best person who's maybe ever lived.
Yeah, he is the sweetest dude. But with the there seems to be a bar show every single week now. Like when we first met, probably like 2009, 2010, there was minimal. Like literally it was Tails. PDX Cocktail Week was just getting started. You had BCB in Germany. I would say that's pretty much those three. Maybe London Cocktail Week in some iteration at that time. With there being bar show every single other week now, how are you finding continuing to evolve PDX Cocktail Week? Or are you very happy? Because I am not blowing smoke up your ass when I say this. I do think it's one of the best shows I've been to in North America, hands down. There's some great ones in Toronto, but it's just there's something about the PDX Cocktail Week way that you set up, and we've talked about it today. How do you see PDX Cocktail Week evolving so that you can keep on that forefront when there's so much else going on?
Well, like I mentioned, Portland Cocktail Week doesn't make money, right? So that pressure is off. I know that sounds wild, right? Like I am not expecting, I don't want, if one day, tomorrow, the next day, whatever, we find a way for it to make money, great. Like that would be a nice little bonus, but I don't see that happening, right? Like that kind of event just doesn't make money, especially when you prioritize safety and transportation, like the things that we prioritize. So I really look at it as a testing ground for us, a place for us to test out concepts, to test out, I mean, obviously care for our community and making sure that folks get access to this education is my top priority. But how we do that has evolved so much over the years, right? And we have the latitude to do it because at the end of the day, like I don't answer to anybody on a lot of this stuff because we can't get most of it sponsored, right? So I can kind of build whatever I want and test it out. And that's given us a lot of room to come up with different mechanics and different ways of approaching these topics that have been presented. A lot of the stuff has been presented over the years, but maybe not always in the best way. And having that freedom to develop and experiment there has been really helpful for me to really understand what our community needs. And it's also important to point out that what the people who come to Portland Cocktail Week in 2025 need is wildly different from what they needed in 2009, right? Like these are very different groups, and we've come a long way as far as like what I have to present versus what, maybe we don't need to do that anymore. Certainly there's some gaps here and there. I'm working on that. But the main message here is I have a lot of freedom to talk directly to all of the incredible people who come. And because I'm not looking at it as this, cash machine, which I don't think that other folks see it this way. Tails is a nonprofit, right? Like they also don't see it as a cash machine. You'd have to be like, you're certifiable if you think that any of this stuff is going to make money. But I think some folks, especially when they're starting out, think this is a really viable, like standalone business profit center. And I think that's where a lot of folks get in trouble. There's a moment in 2015 or 2016, we had more than 5,000 people come to Portland Cocktail Week, which if you've ever visited Portland, like the city of Portland really can't take, like maybe now a little bit more than then, but we overran that city. And it was so unpleasant for so many of our guests. My brand partners were thrilled. The lines were around the block. Everyone's like, oh, that's the mark of success. The lines are on the block. I'm like, no. To me, that's a failure. I don't want to see a line. I want there to be no lines. I want people to quickly be able to get in, enjoy themselves, have a good drink, have a snack, have a nice time, have a chat. It's really important to me that people aren't coming here and standing outside in the rain in Portland in October. What are we doing? No. Like that's not what we need to be doing. So the next year we decided, okay, instead of saying whoever wants a ticket can have one, we're going to cap it at 2,000. And we've capped it at 2,000 ever since, because I know that I can manage 2,000 people really well on the budgets that I can raise. On the money I know I can raise for it, we're going to stick to 2,000. We're going to make those 2,000 people have a great time. Make sure they have the best time they can possibly have. I'd rather 2,000 people have the time of their lives than 20,000 people show up.
Yeah.
And everyone have either kind of an or a bad time. And that comes from a lot of things. I mean, it comes from my personal experiences. I go to almost all of these bar shows. A lot of, I'm activating in a lot. I work for a lot of different brands. So, I'm at a lot of these shows and I'm out there participating. Um, and I see what works for other people. And to be honest with you, I think every show is a little different and everybody can kind of get to these goals how they want to. But for us, I would much rather have 2,000 people having the best time of their lives if they're going to give me that week than have 20,000 people who are all kind of having an okay time.
And they always go, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to get into that party because it's going to be super busy and the lineup's going to be around the corner. I'm just not going to bother going. And then everybody feels that way, and then no one comes to the party. On a personal level, where did this entrepreneurial spirit sort of come from and stem from, and how do you keep yourself motivated? I find, and this is my personal thing, as you get older, the entrepreneurial thing never gets really easier per se, and you always kind of feel like it's going to get easier. And of course, it's very lonely. Usually you're by yourself in an office like I am right now for the next 5 hours. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Where did this entrepreneurial spirit sort of come from, and how do you keep evolving and building it yourself personally?
Oh, well, there are so many answers to that question. I recently, last couple of years, learned that I have ADHD, which totally explains the entrepreneurship, totally explains all of my, how I'm able to work on 20 different projects in the same day. The hyper focus is gorgeous and I'm so grateful for it. So I think part of it is just like my body chemistry. If I'm being honest with you, I think I was just kind of like, I got all three kinds too, friends. So like I'm ready to go. I've got one for every occasion. But I also, I come from a family where I have the most supportive possible parents. My mom was a social worker at a hospital helping kids with cancer for the last 30 years. Volunteers her time helping with nonprofits associated with that hospital to this day. But my dad is an inventor, but also worked at Apple. Like just really, really, really wonderful and supportive folks who always had care for others as part of what they wanted for us. So I felt like I could kind of go out and do whatever I wanted to do. And I was a broadcast journalist first, and then I worked in ad agencies developing video content. And I loved both. Both were really fantastic. But I really wanted to do something on my own. And my best friend in the world was a bartender in New York City. Around the time that I was figuring out that maybe the ad agency wasn't for me after I was assigned the 4th diaper client as the only woman in the department. I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And I started getting gigs making videos for a lot of these liquor companies. And, man, I was like, I could probably quit my job and just do these. And that evolved very quickly. And maybe, having these meetings with these liquor companies going, but I have a question for you. Why are you mean to bartenders? Don't they sell all of your products? I don't understand why they're the only ones not getting paid on the set. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And that very quickly evolved into Lush Life as it is today. And we're now 19 years old. We've been doing this for 19 years as of October, which is wild to say. And we've lived a lot of different lives, and part of it is just being incredibly flexible and being open to new challenges and doing new kinds of work. Part of it is that I get to do projects like Camp and Portland Cocktail Week, which fill my cup and make it so possible for me to slog through some of the market research stuff that we have to do to pay the bills and keep the lights on. But that stuff's interesting too. But I guess the short answer is I think I was sort of designed, in a lab to do this kind of work where, somewhere between the brain chemistry and the socialization for my family, where it's like, if you're not helping people, what are you actually doing? It's somewhere between the two of those things that really it kind of resonates. Like, it makes sense that this is what I'm doing. And then, along the way, I've had incredible help from folks, who've come and worked here. I'm so fortunate to have the people who work at Lush Life who are here. Truly, truly remarkable people. I mentioned Brittany, who's been here for 12 years. I think it's going to be 13 years in April. I can't say enough about how grateful I am for her constant attention to detail and care for bullying care into the people who need it, right? Like, she is going to make sure you eat, and she is going to make sure you finish your test, and she is going to make sure you are at the airport on time. And she just cares so deeply about everyone around her, and that's, I think, part of how she's stuck it out for all this time, because it's a lot of work. But I'm so fortunate to just have all of these people around me who support me and make sure that this stuff can keep happening. And I think the probably the most important group and the most important reason for it is all the bartenders. I get to be in community with. This is my entry doing this work. This is my entry into being in community with them, and I get to spend time with the most remarkable people in the whole wide world. They're brilliant and they're beautiful and they're perfect, and I'm really, really lucky that those are the people I get to serve every day.
It's very cool. So we're almost at the end of the year. What's the plan for the first half of 2026 for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, great question. We're kicking off the year with some American whiskey certifications classes and Irish whiskey certification classes. We're taking folks out to Ireland. We're going to for sure have a session at camp. We stay busy, friend. We just took on a very big project that I can't say much about yet, but that is going to occupy a lot of my time in the next few months. Right now I'm so fortunate to get to work with the people that I get to work with and do the projects that we get to do. But keep an eye out. Like, if you want to come join any of our programs, you can go to lushlifeproductions.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we will email you. Mara on my team, another person I'm very grateful for, will email you and text you and remind you that things are happening if you sign up there. And we'll always tell you when the next thing's coming, because there's always something coming.
There's always something coming. I get those emails, and I'm just like exhausted reading them sometimes, just going, man, there's just so much stuff going on. And I'm lucky enough that I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, and like now the industry is in such a position, and a lot of it's spearheaded by yourself and all the bar shows that are going on in the world. It's like there is so much stuff out there that if you dig your feet in and like dig your teeth into it, you can really push your career forward. Whereas when I started, it was before internet. So it was like, I have 500 cocktail books at home in Australia that will never come to Canada because it'll just cost a fortune. But I have all the books behind me because every time I go past the bookstore, I'm like, okay, well, I need to go see if there's a new cocktail book.
Yeah.
So I can pull information from that as a 22-year-old bartender in 2002. But thank you so much for your time. We're at the stage of the podcast where I give the 5 deep podcast questions. Every single guest gets these 5 deep podcast questions. And they're way deeper than anything that I would normally say. But what is one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life? That's personal or career.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I've been very fortunate to have so many different experiences in this industry, and the climate has changed so significantly, both good and bad over the years. Um, and I think the things that stay with me the most, there's one instance that it just popped into my mind that's, I think, indicative of kind of like this pretty regular thing that happens. I'd say about once a year, twice a year. I will be having a conversation with somebody who works for one of the brands that we work with, whether through sponsorship, what have you. And I'll bring them a project, something as important and seminal as Brown and Balance, right? I brought Brown and Balance to this person. And they said to me, well, we have money for AFAM and we have money for bartenders, but I can't mix the buckets. And maybe I don't want to, but I can't mix them. And I was like, what are we talking about here? Just because a person's Black means you can't support them? Just because they're a bartender, you can't support them as a Black person? This makes no sense. And through the years, we've been able to get past some of that, and we've been able. That was, I want to say, in 2015, right in the early stages of that program, maybe 2016, and that visceral rage that I felt in that moment is something that I keep with me all the time, keeps me going a lot of the time, and it also helps inform me as I'm talking to folks that maybe not everybody is on the same page that I am politically, and I have to maybe approach things slightly differently than I want to. But I'm still going to make sure that we're going out into the world and we're doing that work, and that we are. I mean, at the end of the day, at that specific version of Brown and Balance, that specific event, I paid for the whole thing with my tax return because we couldn't get a sponsor. It took 2 years for anyone to sponsor that program because I kept getting told that we can sponsor Black things or we can sponsor bar things, but
you can't do both.
How could that possibly be the same thing? Anyway, that challenge is, and we're right back at that starting point, right? We got to a place where it was really easy to get stuff like that funded and people excited about it. But we're right back where we were in 2015, maybe a little worse. So that sticks with me a lot, and I think about it a lot as we are in this new world, because I'm not willing to sacrifice my values, and I'm not willing to sacrifice what is important in all of this to appease the powers that be. But I also have to figure out a way to navigate that so we can get to a place where we do have the support that we can make all of these big ideas happen. So that was a complicated one.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Care for each other. All that matters is caring for each other, and that can be in any way you want it to be, right? We all care for each other in different ways. My version of care is very different than Brittany's version of care, right? Like, Brittany's going to yell at you until you do the thing that's good for you. I will just put the food in front of you and be like, oh, look, it's here. How exciting. But think about the ways that you can care for the people around you, because things are going to get worse. And before, while things are not great, all we can really do is rely on each other for that care and support. And joy is such a great resistance tactic. So indulge in joy as much as you can.
Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in life?
I mean, I wish I'd known that I had ADHD. I could have been solving problems a lot earlier, friend. I'll tell you that much. But really, I think a lot of women my age would probably say this. I think that I grew up thinking that a lot of the problems that face society, especially for women, were solved or well on their way to being solved, right? Like, I really genuinely thought, if you had asked me in 2000, yeah, feminism's going great. Like, it's really going great. And part of that is I lived in a feminist household. Both of my parents are fully supportive of women being able to do anything. Like, none of that was an issue. So I think I thought that a lot of those things were solved. Come to find out, oh boy, are they not solved. As I've navigated my way through the world, and, I have people on a phone, calling me little lady and telling me it's impossible for any bar to sell a case of product over the course of a weekend. Wild stuff. I've been called, in the same conversation, both a little girl and a drunk hag, right? Like, in the same conversation by the same person. The misogyny runs deep, and it is not in your head. Very early in my career, I convinced myself that I was making up some of this stuff, and maybe I'm reading too much. I was not reading too much into it, and if I had heeded those warning signs in the early stages, I could have saved myself a lot of headaches. So just keep your wits about you, gals.
How do you define success, and how has your definition of it changed over time?
Success for me is seeing the people around me joyful, successful, and happy. And that has, I'm happy to say, hasn't changed all that much. Money doesn't really matter all that much to me. Money is a way to provide opportunities to others. So as long as I'm able to keep my head above water and keep food on everyone's table and a roof over everybody's head and provide value to my community, that's success. And I'm really, really grateful that I've been able to do that for the last 19 years with this silly little scheme.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
I hope that my legacy is care, right? I hope that when folks look back on the work that I've done, they see that I spent my life making sure that others in the industry were cared for, people who spend their entire lives caring for others and who are usually forgotten by everybody else. I just want to make sure that those people felt seen and heard and cared for and loved. That to me is the whole game, right? Like everything else doesn't matter as long as that's how they feel leaving our programs and our work. Then I feel like I've done something right. That's the legacy I want to leave. And I feel like I do that every day by, yelling at the bus drivers and making sure that that the caterers are paid, and, making sure that everything is where it needs to be, and really pushing our partners to consider, not just at our events, but sort of globally, how we can better serve the people who spend their whole lives serving everybody else.
The very last question. Sorry, I got something in my brain that I'm saying. It's like, the ADH thing is, it's like, it's definitely here. I understand now after so many years, because we've known each other for over a decade, like close to longer than that, but how for some reason we've never had like a deep conversation, but every time we see each other, we just align and just clicks. And then we'll go up our separate ways for a couple of years, and then again we'll just meet at another event and click. And I understand because I feel like our values align so much. Like, it's been always a tough conversation with my wife about why I do so much stuff for free for the industry, and it's interesting when I have those conversations with people. They're like, "Oh, well, you charge to organize these events at different bars." I'm like, "No, I don't.
Sure don't."
If I get a nice bottle or something out of the gig, I'll be happy to take that home. And my wife's like, "That takes time. Time is money, Soole." I'm like, "No, it's just is the way
it is, but it also, caring for the people who are cared for the least. It has dividends, and those dividends do, definitely come emotionally, definitely come from building that community, but ultimately they come financially as well. Tell her that, eventually it comes back. And, even if it doesn't, you get to spend your time with the best people on earth. So you're all good.
You've been to Victoria. It's a small market. It has been for years, and I've got so many amazing people here
So
that
beautiful.
support. But one last question before we hit the road. Favorite classic cocktail that you would like to enjoy?
So, fun fact about me, I am mildly allergic to citrus, and I lose my vision if I have like 2 full drinks with citrus.
Wow.
I get an ocular migraine, lights go out, right? So my choices are limited in what, that I think that gets me to, I mean, I'm almost always ordering a martini when I'm just sort of left to my own devices. I worked on Tanqueray for 9 years.
Yeah.
You don't spend 9 years locked in a room with Angus Winchester and leave thinking that things other than martinis are the right choice. Very grateful.
He's very
truly one of the best people in the industry, one of my favorite people of all time. But I usually default that way. Very funny story is that when I was splitting time between New York and San Francisco, all the San Francisco bartenders were like, "We get it. You're from New York. You only like stirred drinks. We have good citrus here. Stop being weird." I'm like, "I'm promising you, it's not that. I will go blind. I would like to be able to look at you. Please leave me alone."
That's amazing. But Lindsey, thank you so much for your time. I can't believe I haven't had you on the show. I've this 2.0 version of Post Shift. I've got actually a list of like people who I want to have on the show, my vision board, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, as I build my schedule out, I make sure that I'm getting all the right people. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. I know that you're uber busy, and taking that little bit of time out for me has been fantastic.
Anytime, friend. It's always so good to see you.
Well, good luck for the rest of the year, and then have a good 2026.
Thanks, you too.
All right, Post Shifters, that's it for now. Keep your standards high, your spirits neat, and your team tighter than your porkos. Catch you next week on the Post Shift Podcast.